Everybody. Welcome to the UX Group Conversation. I'm Christy Leneveld, VP of User Experience. Very excited to have you here. So we'll go ahead and jump into the agenda. Wayne, would you like to voice your question?
Sure. So I noticed, I think it's pretty neat that we're doing these, looking at our content in documentation with the Fleisch-Kincaid readability test to make the pages as easy to read as possible. It's great. Are we planning in the future perhaps to add it to the pipelines so that the folks who are writing, updating content could perhaps know what was the old score for readability and what's the new score with the changes so that people can be aware of them?
So thanks, Wayne. I'm Susan Tacker. I'm Senior Manager in Tech Writing. We have a veil test that we can run to show the readability score. I don't know about a comparison, but we can look into it. Right now, we don't want to always run the veil test because we don't have a documented way to tell people how to simplify the text yet. But we have considered it, and it's a good idea.
Cool. Thanks for considering it.
Thanks, Susan. Sid.
On that last subject, Wayne, thanks for bringing it up. We have a category in GitLab, accessibility, and we can rename that to accessibility and readability, because I think reading understanding is a core part of accessibility. Like accessibility is not just about the visual, like we have a ton of people who some sentences are too hard. Some sentences we use at GitLab are too hard for me to understand. So it is just a struggle. So we can consider kind of making that a GitLab feature. Just for consideration. My point is one of the OKRs is lovability of merge requests. And I think that's the work from the team is going really well. Recently, there were 2 errors in our primary function of merge request. Every merge request you open, it starts with an error, even though there isn't one. And when you click, you frequently see these intermittent, there was an error occurred somewhere, I'm missing the link right now. And the UX team identified it all the way up to Christy and ringing the bell, but product is not responding. And I think product is making a bad trade-off here. And I wonder what UX thinks about this and whether we should have an escalation path. Because personally, I was awake this night. Like, how can it be that the primary thing GitLab does, merge request, is like airing out for every single person? And I saw some of our biggest customers had upvoted these issues. And at the same time, we were delaying them to another release. I think it should be like, this is critical to fix, not just in this release, but we should backport the fixes and things like that. I think we should treat it as a bug, a really critical one. But just want to open the conversation, don't have a suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that was a bug too. And I understand your concerns. I agree with you. I think it's these things, and that one in particular, were really important. I will tell you what's in my head right now, and I am open to other ideas. So I think one thing is the UX team needs to push harder on these, and we're starting to do that, but we just need to push harder with PM. We need to make sure that when we're presenting these scenarios that we're making it really clear what the pain is and why it's so important. And that's on us to do that. The other thing that I'm looking at is how we can start tracking a metric around new features versus improvements in a stage group by stage group way. Because for some stage groups, the balance will be very different than others. So for example, the source code stage group, that critical area, we should be making improvements in that area. Right now, we don't know what our balance of new feature to improvements is, which makes it hard for our PMs to make decisions. I've been working with the product team to see if we can figure out how to do that through the product development flow. If that doesn't work, I've asked Valerie Carnes, who as of Monday will be our interim director of product design, to take that on and figure out how we'll drive it from the UX team, because it's really, really important for us to know. So those are the things that I'm thinking about right now, but I also know I don't always have all of the best ideas. So if other folks have good ideas around this, please let me know.
One of the aspects we've also been trying to do is get UX into the severity label table more clearly, because this is heavily being used to prioritize what features or what bugs we want to work on. We now have a more clear description of what UX problem a different severity label relates to. But I think we also need to look at how to apply this, for example, for a situation like here, where this is not a severity label 2 or 1, that's clearly blocking a user from doing something, but it's so super annoying that it's definitely a thing we should fix super quickly and with high priority. So we need to have a look at how we can make that language more clearly in the severity label table as well.
That's a good point, Marcel. We worked with quality to make changes to those descriptions recently, but maybe we need to look at doing another round of refinement on those descriptions. And that's something we can work with MEC on.
Cool. Yeah, I think thanks for suggesting something that's within your control, like make the severity and the frequency clear. Feel free to escalate to your manager, Eric. Feel free to escalate to me. Feel free to escalate to Scott. Feel free to put it on the scaling agenda. And I think that this conversation about, hey, is there the possibility to have UX bugs that have a severity 1? Because in my mind, this feels like an S1, even though it might not meet the definition. Like if our primary thing is broken for everyone and giving very confusing messages, that's something that we should solve, as like drop everything else, solve that first. So let's look into that. Thanks, Christy, for the conversation. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Sorry, you got me really thinking about this now. You're right, because we have UX bugs with severity labels currently, but the definition is not what we've discussed right here. I think the other thing as we're talking about this, that maybe the UX team needs to do a better job of is making sure that things like this are labeled as a bug and not as, like, for example, UX debt, because we're going to take a bug much more seriously than we're going to take UX debt. So that's something that my team needs to take away from this as well.
Great. And if someone on the call has a link to the errors that happen when you click, I think there's something with too many attributes in the view code, and feel free to drop it in the agenda.
Yeah, thanks again for this, Sid. It was a really good conversation. Who else? Anybody else have anything they want to discuss?
Hey, this is Mac here. Just want to say I'm on the call and I'm aware of that proposal, and we'll take it to there with the high urgency. Thanks, Christy and Sid for the call out here.
Yeah, thanks, Mac. You're always great to work with, so I'll look forward to collaborating with you on that.
Thank you. And if I may chime into point 3, there was one comment around looking at improvements and existing new features. We have an OKR to deprecate the backstage label, and I think features now are going to be scoped on, is it feature maintenance or feature new? And that will allow us to slice what is the existing improvements on the existing features, which is the new one. And I think that OKR on our side, I'll post a link, is tracking at 30%-ish, but we aim to have it completed in this quarter. So expect more clarity there as we remove backstage from our labels.
I feel like you're telling me my metrics problem is solved. I'm sorry, I'm very happy right now.
We still need to communicate it. I'm taking this venue to multimodal communicate and socialize that is landing. And backstage should not be used because it's a grab bag and doesn't tell anything in specific to what's going on.
Awesome.
I wanna say how much I love the presentation. We probably shouldn't spend a ton of time on the slide deck, but it looks really good, and it looks really good because the work is really good. Regarding the expanded dependency proxy, I still have to watch the YouTube clip and I didn't quite understand, from many locations to a single logical URL endpoint. Maybe there's someone on the call who knows what that, who can explain that to me with a low veil score or whatever the metric is.
I could potentially take a jab at it. I worked I worked with a while ago on it. The idea with a dependency proxy is that instead of fetching the packages remotely from a remote server, the dependency proxy goes in between and kind of caches that remote dependency in our environment, making it so that it's a dependable resource for us to rely on. And additionally, it will act as a interface for us to have reliable URL connections to, so that in our hard-coded code, we can reliably reference a certain URL instead of being dependent on the URLs that a third party will generate. That is as far as my knowledge goes. So for the moment, perhaps if anybody else have any answers.
Is it like, hey, we should use our own dependency proxy instead of getting Docker containers from Docker Hub? Is that what you're saying, or it's a bit abstract?
Yeah, so the dependency proxy will be connected to the Docker Hub. And as we will request, for example, a Docker Hub image, it will be through that connection stored in our dependency proxy and will be there for any moment like available, even if, for example, Docker Hub goes offline or like is removed from existence.
Okay, I thought that our dependency proxy, that is what a dependency proxy is in my mind. I thought it already did that.
Sorry, I can actually, I can jump in. Sorry, I was having some connectivity issues. Right now it does. Just as you're describing, we're going to take in these assets and proxy them from third parties into the GitLab environment. One of the things we're looking at expanding on specifically is being able to look at multiple registries in multiple locations and pull them all in through a single endpoint, so that if it's in Docker Hub and also on AWS or another third party, engineers and tools can use a single URL to pull them in no matter where they're from. And the expansion also includes different packages and asset types to be able to all be pulled through that one URL.
Cool. That's great. I would consider looking at the language a little bit. I thought that the bigger priority here would be, hey, let's make sure it works with private packages and private projects, because as far as I understand, the dependency proxy right now only works with public projects.
That's a really good call out. We're doing some solution validation coming up next. And one of the big questions we have for a lot of our customers is exactly that. Should we focus on expanding to many different public registries, or does the private registry need to be our next focus? So we'll have some data coming up soon for that.
Awesome. Thanks. Great to hear you're looking into that.
Since no one else has anything immediately, I'll go back to thank you for saying our slides look good. Appreciate that. Pretty easy to pull together. This is vastly, most of it, pre-existing content. And then it's pretty because we're designers and that's what we do, and we do it fast. So. Who else has questions? All right, looks like we are done pretty early today. Thank you for everyone who attended. Thank you for the great questions and feedback. If you have anything that comes up into your mind after this, just reach out. Happy to chat. All right, everyone have a wonderful day.